Welcome back to Worth the Effort Woodworking. As you can see, we are back in my dad's shop because today we're going to show you one of our more popular craft items that we sell.
Craft? Hell, mine are art.
These are one of our more popular craft items. We actually, these little meta trees or holiday trees, we started making them probably 6 or 7 years ago so that they would go in those little snow villages, those snow globe villages, the little porcelain things that people put out in Christmas, just something nice and colorful around the houses. But what we found is the more we did them, the more popular they became, and I have repeat customers that are coming back to me year after year, and they'll buy a few of these. So now they have a little forest of different species of trees, different colors, different shapes, right in the middle of their table, and some of them will leave them up on a bookcase shelf year-round as sheer decorations. I've even had some customers tell me that they will use these in their bathroom for their daily jewelry. Their rings will fit up on top. They can double wrap their bracelets and necklaces around it, and just a place to hang the stuff they wear all the time so they're not going in and out of their jewelry box quite a bit. They're fairly quick to make. I think they're pretty profitable, and they are just a great way to get a lot of impulse buy, gift items into your booth to sell during the holiday season. So, since we're in my dad's shop, let him show you some of the ones that he makes here.
Welcome to my shop. I'm Sean's dad. I wanted to, before we start going in and showing how you make these, I wanted to talk about a few of them. Basically, these are wood that we turned into holiday trees. I like to make a finial that looks like a cross, but we've done some others. I also will color some of them. This one has been limed and dyed. Some of them are colored with a lacquer coat afterwards to get them shiny. Others are just polished. Sometimes when I'm going into them, I will see something that I decide to change on. This was a mesquite limb that had a burl in it. And as I was turning it, it looked so nice that I just left it that way and didn't put any rings in it. And I think it looks really good too. It shows off well. Another nice piece is taking the crotch of a tree, or crotch on a limb, and turning it as a holiday tree. You'll notice it ends up being flat on both sides, and that ends up being a centerpiece in someone's display, and they can put angels or a small nativity scene. Really makes it look nice. So that's another option you can do with a crotch. This happens to be a cedar crotch. So with that in mind, let me start and show you how it's done. Before we start rough turning this piece of cedar, I would like to spend a few moments talking about wood selection. I like to use hardwoods. They tend to have better color. They tend to end up having more figure, and at the same time, a whole lot of mesquite looks good, but a whole forest of it, maybe not. So I like to have a lot of variation, and it's just what we get. I normally don't work with just a limb like this. I will normally work with pieces that I've cut out where I don't have a pith in it. In the case of this limb, we will set it up to where the pith is off center and not having to worry with it. And typically when it dries, if it happens to crack a little bit around the pith, that's not a big deal. Now, some of the options that we use when we rough turn is I can rough turn it round and just leave it that way. Here's an example. I've turned this piece of pecan round, left it between centers, sealed it up, and then I will let it dry. Another option will be turning the piece round, putting a tenon on the end of it, sealing it up, and letting that dry. A third option will be turning it round, putting a tenon on it, and then turning it into a cone and letting that dry.
Dad, why are you talking about drying? We gotta get these to market. They don't need to dry. It's just a craft.
It's a piece of art, and when it dries, I can make it look much better than I can do. Go do your own stuff. Okay, we are ready to start roughing. This is a spindle roughing gouge. And here we go. You can notice I'm just moving my body, not the tool. Slowly taking cuts. And I am also not looking at where the tool is cutting, but I'm looking at the shadow on the other side so I can see it. And I am going to make this one into that cone. Okay, before I go any further, I'm going to put my tenon on. And to do that, I've got a tool that I've made myself. It's just a square bar, almost like a heavy-duty small skew. And here we go. This is called a peeling cut, and all I'm doing is taking the end off. Now I'll put my tenon on. Alright, as you can see right here is my tendon, and even though there is a void right there, it's still going to bite very well and hold. This will end up being the base of my tree, where I'll end up cutting it in for my base, and now I just want to cone it out. And here we go. Notice that when I'm using my roughing gouge, if I come back and tilt it slightly, I can take some nice cuts off of it.
Dad, wait! What are you doing? You're making a cone, and the cone's got to go in the middle. We got to get 2 of these in here. We're mass producing this craft. We got to get this.
This is my piece. It's art.
But
and I don't want
I could get 2 $25 trees out of this thing. Put a 10 on this.
But I can get one nice piece for 75 to 100. Give me a break. Get out of here.
I'm taking my stuff to my shop.
Well, take your stuff to your shop. I'll still stay here working, making art. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the finished piece that's green. I've left a little bit, kind of a long piece right here, for I can put that finial in it later on when it dries. Also, I've made that tenon slightly bigger than I would like, than I will if I do it, because when I return it up afterwards, I'm going to turn it down when it's all dry in, typically 3 to 12 months. Then
3 to 12 months? Dad, we got to mark it in 2 weeks. It's okay if it cracks. We just got...
Just go away. Go back to your shop and do your own thing, okay? Here we go. Now, here is a dried piece that I'm going to chuck up and make it go. So first thing I got to do is get it mounted, and then we can retrue it. It has not moved very much. That's pretty good. I want to retrue this tenon. Pretty good. And that's all I need to do. Now I just need to mount it on my chuck. Okay, mounted on the chuck. Now you can, if you want, go ahead and bring your tailstock up there for a while. It's not necessary. Next thing we want to do is true it all up. So we're going to use that same roughing gouge to true it up. And we're just getting any vibrations out of it, any movement. So now we have a nice little shape to it. Pretty good. That thing, this is a piece of walnut and it didn't really move that much. That's just pretty good. First thing I do when I'm at this point is just dry. This is the general shape of the tree. Is I want to do a finial out here. Whatever design I want to put on it, I want to do it now. And the design I'm going to put on it is one that I like, which is a cross. Before I start cutting, you'll notice I've got the end of it there where the tailstock was in. I want to remove all of that so that I got a nice end. Now, please understand, I'm a good 12 inches off this chuck out here, so I want to take very light cuts so I don't make it vibrate too much. Try not to get too many catches like that. And I want to get rid of that, continue taking stuff off until there's no evidence of my tailstock. There's still a little bit more of that hole there. Yeah, it's all gone. Okay. Now, I want to make that cross, and I make that cross with basically making a bead. I want to take this little diameter down to a width that will equal the width of my cross. And that's about right. Right there. Next, I want to take my parting tool and I want to come in here and slowly take away material all the way down to where I'm close to the thickness of my cross. That's about right. Now, that measures about 1.5 of the diameters of my parting tool. So I'll come over about 1.5. That's the amount. Now I'm going to take it off. Right there. Again, I'm going slowly because I'm way out here on the end with a lot of leverage. And I want to take this down to where it's about the same thickness as this and this together, so they'll all be the same. That's about it right there. So there is the beginnings of my cross.
Dad, what are you showing them? Listen, the thing about working art marketing and stuff like that is you are making hundreds of these and you want them to appeal to the broadest market possible. You can't assume that everybody coming into your booth is going to be a Christian who's going to want a cross on top of their tree. You are trying to make money at this one. And I've always found that the most profitable markets this time of year are more metropolitan kind of markets, more secular, that kind of stuff. There's no reason a Christian wouldn't enjoy a plain tree in their nativity scene or something like that. It doesn't have to have a cross. And if you don't have that option available to them, hey, they won't expect it. But having the skill and the knowledge to be able to add a cross, a ball, even a star or a finial or anything like that to the top of the tree in a carved manner is a benefit if you know who the final recipient of the gift or the tree will be. Because you can go up to them, hey, do you want me to add a cross to the top of it? It's kind of an added bonus. But for mass marketing and stuff like that, hey, save yourself the time, make a little bit of extra money, and just add a very nice top. A few slices just to get rid of that little indentation from your tailstock or from when you were roughing it out. Just as Dad says, once that is gone, work on the shape. The top shape is going to set the entire theme of your tree. If you want to, you can have a nice, broad, tall top with a gentle curve, and that will look very, very nice. Blunt the tip a tad bit so it will be more durable. Another thing about these kind of tips, they're a lot less likely to break off when you're packing them up and stuff like that.
Yada, 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 Sean. Just go and do your thing. What I want to do now is blend in the first ring into my finial. So I just want to take off stuff to make a nice blend or segue into that top of that finial there. So notice I'm taking very thin, light cuts. And this will be the final cut for this piece right here. Soon, whenever I get it finished. Notice how I'm slowly blending it in. There we go. Very good. Okay, the distance from the base of my finial to the end of it is about 10.5 inches. So I'm going to go at 1 inch increments. That way I'll end up having 10 rings. So here we go. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
What are you doing
6.
showing them how to measure? You know, if you're one of those guys that has to have their pieces just absolutely dead on perfect for everything, you're going to have to invest a lot more time involved in it. That's pulling out those rulers and measuring. Once again, we're in craft. We're trying to make these fast for the market. Grab yourself a divider, set it up. If you want evenly spaced segments, just walk it off evenly. But I've always kind of found that trees kind of their segments get a little bit narrower. So I can come over here, set my bottom segment, drop it in, move it over, and each step, maybe angle it out a little bit more. So I get a few more steps, and each step is going to be a little bit more shallow than the previous one. Plus, look at how much time this saves. I'm just walking steps off until I get to the end. An easy, much easier way to lay out my segments. Voila!
Sean, you're always looking for shortcuts. Do it right the first time. Okay, I like it this way. This is the way I feel comfortable. I can follow my lines and I know everything is fine. Can't always teach anybody anything. You know what? Here we go. Here where all my little rings are going to be. And I'll cut at them. And I need these rings for the reason that I work off of them. First thing I want to do is take a little bit of a V cut and remove and establish a starting point, and then come back taking small cuts. I have a couple options here of the shape of my rings. I'm showing you a shape that a lot of people like, which is sort of a rounded kind of. Notice I'm taking light cuts, and I want to take stuff off, but not go quite to that first ring yet. I want to stay off of it. Now I want to come back and remove very slowly the underside of the ring above it. And slowly file it off again. Coming back and forth to take that center out. And that general shape, I would continue through the rest of them. But I'm gonna another shape is where it's more of a convex shape coming up, which I would think would be, and I'm going to use that on this one instead. So here we go. Notice it's that way, and now take my last cut right there, right at that line. Slowly coming on up. Get rid of any stragglers right there. We'll turn it off so you can see. And we want to repeat that shape through the rest of the way. At this point, I have the rings done. I need to shape the base. So you can shape it however we want, but I've got a little bit of space right here. I'm going to make the bottom one just a little bit bigger than the rest. And in the base. Now, in cutting the base, we're going to part this off in a minute, so you need to leave some material right in here so that chuck will still have something to brace up against. So don't get so close to the chuck that there's nothing there for it to brace on, because you got a lot of leverage hanging out here. Now, the shape is done, and I need to sand, so we'll get ready to sand.
Sand? We don't sand craft. Do you realize how much sandpaper costs? I mean, you could easily go through $1 or $2 of sandpaper, or its equivalent, on each one of these items if you're going to sit there and sand every little element. Craft items, it's okay to have a few tool marks. It shows your artisanship, your craftsmanship, your skill level. Just keep practicing. You'll get better and better and better. Instead of sanding, just freshly hone your edge and make the best cut you can and go on from there.
Unlike my son, I like to create pieces that look like art or look like something that someone would want to keep as an heirloom forever. So sanding is important to me. And basically I go through the grits. Now I am using good sharp tools, so I don't have to start off at 80 or 120 grit. Most of the time I can start off at 220. Which is what I have on here now. I'll start with a freshman. I basically label them so I don't have to get. And I'm using a very thin disc holder so that I can get in close. I turn my lathe speed down. I want to go against its speed. It's going backwards. And I'm slowly following the shape that I want to take. I'm getting rid of any kind of tool marks that are there. And I'll keep sanding until I don't see any marks in it, then I'll go to the next one. And again, I just want to move it back and forth to see all of my lines going away. I like the power sander over just using sandpaper by hand. If you're using sandpaper by hand, then the wood is moving, but the sandpaper is really not. Even if you slightly move it a little bit, you'll end up getting concentric circles around. Using the power sander, I'm able to go a little bit faster, but at the same time, both of them are moving, and you end up getting, in my mind, a smoother surface quicker. So here we go. Continuing on. When I glue the bottoms of them, I end up getting the disc spinning in the opposite direction, so I'm going against it. Normally when I'm doing this, I have my shop vac on with a vacuum right here sucking everything away from me. But if I did that right now, you couldn't hear me or see me, so I'm doing without it. Okay, I have done the first sanding on everything. Next thing is I'm going to take this disc off and try to get right down into the in-between. But before I do that, I want to turn this bead that I made into the cross. So I want to look and see which direction I want the cross to face. And I like this section, and the annual rings are running this way, so this will be the flat surface. So here we go. There it is, all finished. I want to do a little bit in that crevice. That was 220. Now I want to do 320. Okay, next step, I would want to part it off, but before I part it off, I want to put some sanding sealer on it. Here's how I do. I keep my sanding sealer, which is 50% alcohol, 50% sanding sealer, and I just spray it on. Let it sit for just a little bit and then begin to take it off. Typically this sanding sealer will be the only finish I put on it. Sometimes I'll put an oil on it, but most of the time this will dry out fairly quickly, and I can buff it up with the Beal system and it looks just gorgeous. But isn't that a nice piece of walnut? Okay, next we're going to be parting it off. I'm going to use a parting tool. Again, I want to make sure we leave enough material in here so that the chuck still has a good grip on it. So I'm going to go right into there. Back off a little bit, smaller, the bigger area. This is just sort of a peeling cut. It's going in. I want to put a little bit of a small bevel on the base there. There we go. Now at this point, when I start parting it off, I'm going to come in and slightly undercut it so that it will sit flat. And I just go back and forth, taking a little bit off each side. I'm going to take enough off so then I can cut it off with a saw. This is just too big of a piece to try to part it off by hand and catch it. So I'll part it down to just enough to where I can begin to see things start to vibrate, and I'll stop right there and we'll cut it off with a saw. And we just parted it off, and I still got this kind of nib here in the bottom. I'm going to use my sanding grinder just to grind it off. Again, a little bit of sanding sealer. And there it is, the finished walnut tree. Got some nice figure to it, some nice color. I really kind of like it. Now with the sanding sealer just put on it, this is the Zentner shellac sanding sealer that I mixed 50% with alcohol. And I can let it sit for an hour or so, and then I can take it to the buffer and buff it up. Probably best to let it sit overnight. But here's an example of one that had sanding sealer on it and then buffed up with the Beal system. See how nice that looks. Now I still have to buff this one, but as you can see, these are pieces of art that will likely end up being family heirlooms that are passed down to the next generation, and oftentimes displayed year-round instead of just the holidays.
Well, there you go. A nice selection of art and craft style trees. And if you get a nice display table with a few hundred of these, people will walk through them, they'll pick out their favorites, they'll line up different shapes, sizes, all that kind of stuff to make nice centerpieces for their tables, and it's a multiple purchase kind of situation. Lots of impulse buys, and these also make great gifts, especially for offices and gift exchange and stuff like that. So make a few dozen for yourself this year, pass them around, give them out as gifts, whatever. They're quick to make, fairly profitable, and you'll enjoy the experience. Now I hope you enjoyed this video, learned a few tips and techniques. If you did, please like, favorite, subscribe, do all those social medias. Go to our website where we have a lot of swag, such as t-shirts and hats, and we also do sell a lot of our own artwork there. So if you can't make something like this your own, you might be able to pick it up off of our website. All those sales really do help subsidize me making these kind of videos and this channel. And I want you to remember one last thing. It is always worth the effort to learn, create, and share with others. Y'all be safe and have fun.